Welcome back to Whitney Alex Works recap of The Bachelor Season 26, Episode 9, The Women Tell All. In this episode, the eliminated women get a chance to speak out about their journey, and many of them are pretty pissed off about Clayton and his decisions, and I really think this episode was about to become an episode of Jerry Springer, as there was a true feeling of hostility. Let's dive in. Clayton has to face the women he sent home, but first, host and former Bachelor number 5, Jesse Palmer, is here to help navigate this infamous episode. Many of the women are here, some favorites and some not so much. You know it's bad when the audience boos when Shanae is introduced, and this is just the beginning. We start with a recap of some of the controversial contestants on this season. We are reintroduced to Claire, the woman that left night one because she didn't feel it with Clayton, saying Clayton was too soft for her. And then Cassidy, who had her share of some drama, who admits that she did have someone waiting for her back home. And Sierra calls her out again, saying that she was disrespecting the whole process, as Clayton was looking for a wife and Cassidy was just there to see how it went. And then the women blame Cassidy for making Shanae even more evil, as the women are pissed off at Shanae and it gets heated pretty fast. There is no room for apologies, as Shanae is called a diabolical, sinister bitch and a bully. Lindsay gets her revenge by saying straight to Shanae's face, F you, and it was pretty amazing, and Lindsay just booked herself a seat in paradise, but of course the franchise has to exploit Shanae's villainness and invites her to the hot seat. I understand that the show wanted to give Shanae a chance to speak, but really the women were right. Shanae is still pretty delusional and she's not going to change or apologize about her behavior. We are then treated to a recap of Shanae's obsession with Elizabeth and that whole Shrimpgate situation, and Shanae is still caught up in her own narrative about how Elizabeth was apparently fake to her. But again, the women have had it already with Shanae and call her out for her behavior. And it's becoming pretty obvious that the women want to take her to the stake. Jill calls her out, saying Shanae is a narcissist and a gaslighter. Props to Jill for keeping it real this season. And then we are again dealing with another feud between Shanae and Genevieve. Genevieve goes up to hash it out with Shanae, and of course Shanae is still pretty delusional about the whole experience, but instead of keeping it real, Shanae calls out Genevieve for hanging out with Bachelor Nation after she got eliminated and accuses her of hooking up with Aaron from Katie's season, and the audience is shook, and Genevieve denies this and instead says that Shanae tried to get with him and he wanted nothing to do with her. And then Jesse Palmer, who doesn't seem equipped to take on this whole situation, kept trying to give Shanae the floor to speak last, which is just pretty messed up because Shanae has admitted that she isn't going to apologize and is sticking to her version of events. And the show completely skips over the fact that Shanae shamed Elizabeth for having mental health issues, which is pretty disgusting, and Shanae should be put in the pit of too far gone contestants. But unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if she gets casted for Paradise, because this is what happens on this show. For example, it happened with Victoria L. from Matt James's season, but we shall see when Bachelor in Paradise Season 8 comes around, so stay tuned. And then we get a chance to catch up with Sarah, who had her share of drama this season. Sarah is invited to the hot seat, and we are shown a recap of her time with Clayton, and then her ending with her getting sent home before hometowns. After the footage, Sarah has mixed feelings because she did feel like her relationship with Clayton was genuine, but she sticks to the story that because she got a second one-on-one before others, she ultimately had a target on her back. But the other women call her out as well, saying that she was manipulative and made it seem like it was her and Clayton against all the other women. And really the thing here is whether or not Sarah was truthful about whether or not Clayton and her cried together. And that's really it. Did Clayton cry? Did Sarah lie about Clayton crying? It's just riveting stuff. But Sarah says that he did cry with her, and the other women will just have to wait to get Clayton's side of it. After Sarah, next up in the hot seat is Clayton's first impression rose, Teddy. We see a recap of Teddy and Clayton's relationship and their eventual breakup, with Teddy going home right before hometowns. And after the footage, Teddy is pretty emotional and says she had a hard time watching that, knowing that she tried to be perfect, but in the end it didn't work out with Clayton. But Teddy says that she really thought that she would make it to fantasy suites with him, and it seems the curse of the first impression rose got Teddy in the end. But Teddy shares some juicy gossip that the crowd ate up. Allegedly, Clayton's brother reached out to Teddy through DMs, but she didn't respond, telling host Jesse Palmer that, quote, "I'll say I think one Eckerd boy in my life was enough for me," and we are left hoping that one day Teddy will get her happy ending, and most likely we will see her in paradise. After Teddy, next up in the hot seat is elementary school teacher Serene. Just like Teddy, we get a recap of her journey with Clayton, and after the footage, Serene says that she felt like she did everything she could to fight for Clayton's love, but in the end, it wasn't enough. She reflects on her brother's worries on her hometown date and how she really wanted to break down her walls, but she assures everyone that she is hopeful and excited for the future. Serene says she is fine and she is grateful for the experience. And maybe she's headed for paradise. And finally, Clayton shows up ready to face the women he sent home, and the women want blood. Jesse welcomes him to the hot seat and asks him to reflect on his journey. And Clayton says that his nerves are racing and the whole experience felt like a dream. But the hardest part for him was having to watch his experience back as the Bachelor, as he said outside of the show that he ultimately regretted being the Bachelor. But during the Women Tell All episode, he plays along, saying that he made a lot of mistakes, but he has no regrets. And then the women immediately come after him, wanting to call him out for his bullshit. First up to take a bite out of him is Sierra, asking him, why did he neglect the words of so many women about Shanae? And honestly, Clayton looks pretty defeated and he tries to defend his actions, but the women, they're not having it. Clayton said he wanted tangible evidence, but Lindsay calls him out saying there was tangible evidence, and the women just want him to own the fact that Clayton did have a connection with Shanae, and that's why she was ultimately able to get away with her nasty behavior for so long. And then Clayton, backed in a corner, does admit he did have a connection with Shanae, but then says that keeping Shanae around was his worst decision. So, does he regret this? Anyway, enough of giving Shanae any more screen time. We get it. She's twisted and delusional about her behavior. But Clayton isn't done getting slammed by the other women. They really want to hang, drawn, and quarter him, but they will have to suffice for just calling him out, as he then speaks out about his relationship with Sarah. Sarah calls him out for stirring the pot, and ultimately Clayton says that he lost trust with her, but Sarah said she just wished that he didn't take the women at their word to where their relationship suffered. And we are back to the most important question of this Women Tell All. Did Clayton cry, and do we really care? But Clayton admits that he did cry many times, but not with Sarah. And there you have it. Two sides to the story. Who do you believe? And in the end, does this really matter? But enough with whether or not Clayton cried. He then catches up with Serene and Teddy, and with Serene he says that he wishes that he was able to open up more with her, as he tells her that he hopes she can still open up. Serene, who handles herself and is extremely mature, says she is fine and she has grown and hopes for the future. And with all that said, we get a few positive things to talk about. Unfortunately, Clayton's season is kind of teased as a possible Peter Weber 2.0, but some women shoot their shot. Dr. Kira tells Clayton that after watching each episode, she was still attracted to him, so she shoots her shot, saying that if he is single, she tells him she is open to dating him again, so Clayton still has some options. And then we are treated to some bloopers, with my favorite being a champagne cork flying off like a rocket, scaring both Clayton and Teddy, and of course bugs attacking the contestants, and even an armadillo running around scaring the women. And then we are treated to some fun footage of Jesse Palmer's time as the Bachelor way back in 2004, where he famously called the wrong woman's name at a rose ceremony. But with all that, we are left with the tease of upcoming footage and how this season ultimately ends. And the show is not even trying to hide it anymore, that it most likely ends in disaster. And then Sierra interrupts Clayton, saying basically like, how dare you tell 3 women you love them? And Clayton looks pretty sad, and Teddy just hopes that he is okay. And oh yeah, don't forget Clayton, Dr. Kira wants to know if you're still single, but we will have to wait and see what happens with Clayton's final 3 women during Fantasy Suites between Rachel, Gabby, and Susie. Thank you for watching Whitney Alex Works recap of The Bachelor Season 26, Episode 9, The Women Tell All. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to Whitney Alex Works for more videos in the future. See you soon for Fantasy Suites.